Hello, everyone. Welcome to the community stand-up for Azure API Management and Azure API Center. We are excited to see you again in September. My name is Mike Budzynski. I'm a senior product manager for Azure API Management. And we'll have a few guests join the presentation as well throughout the call, throughout the live stream. First of all, we organize these live streams to hear your opinions, to let you hear our opinions on the direction of the API industry that we think that the industry is headed in. You can see what's new in our products in Azure API Management, Azure API Center, and other adjacent products that help you with API management. And it's also a great opportunity for you to ask us any questions about our products, provide feedback, or connect with fellow users of API management. I see we have attendees from Canada, from the US. Please feel free to post something in the chat, connect with others, say where you're tuning in from, and forge that connection. Today, we'll be talking about our 10th anniversary. Believe it or not, Azure API Manager has just turned 10 years old. We'll also talk about Defender for APIs and what's new in the Azure API platform, mostly around Workspaces and API Center updates. And we'll wrap it up with a Q&A session at the end, but feel free to post the comments at any time, and I'll be addressing those comments as we go, or the speakers of respective sections can also address those comments or questions. With that, I would like to start on a very positive note. Azure API Management is 10 years old officially as of September 2024. We went GA, generally available, in September 2014. And Microsoft Azure was the first hyperscale public cloud to integrate an API management solution in the cloud at least a year or two before other hyperscale clouds. So we were well ahead of the game in 2014. Over the past decade, we have evolved our product to serve diverse needs of customers of all sizes and industries. So of course, we started small, but over time, we have built up 7 tiers of Azure API Management, from free tier that's based on the serverless infrastructure, which is the consumption tier, to the most enterprise-grade tier, the premium tier, and we are just adding more tiers now as well. We also extended support for various API types in API management, from REST and SOAP to GraphQL, WebSockets, and gRPC APIs. We built up our advanced policy engine. We added custom policy expressions to let you extend that engine with custom logic. We kept adding policies over time, from security policies to integration policies to protection to very specific policies, for example, for GraphQL or Azure OpenAI. We are available now in over 60 regions. We are one of the most globally available platforms in the world. And we also support or added support for self-hosted gateways to meet the demands or needs of our clients for on-prem and multi-cloud workloads. So that evolution over the past decade has been really impressive, and I'm excited to be part of the journey. And it brought us to a really good place where we are today. We are one of the most trusted and established and adopted API management platforms in the world. So interesting facts, we serve over 35,000 customers globally. We manage nearly 2 million API versions, and we process over 2 trillion API requests monthly. And we continue to grow at a rapid pace despite that already huge scale that we have. But rest assured that we are not resting despite our size and despite our position. We are still investing in shaping up the future of the API management industry and the landscape. And we are betting on some more innovative features that we think our customers will need starting tomorrow, or potentially even starting just a couple of years from now. Some of these features you might have heard of. For example, we have recently added GenAI gateway capabilities to meet the needs of customers who want to use and control and mediate and manage AI APIs. We have integrated with Microsoft Copilot for AI-assisted interfaces to increase productivity. We're investing in federated API management with Workspaces. We are redoing our infrastructure with V2 tiers of API management. We have added API Center to our portfolio just last year, and this service is meant to enhance the governance of APIs even beyond Azure API management. We have also added Defender for APIs, which is an advanced AI and ML-powered security solution specifically tailored for APIs, and much more. So we are busy working, we are busy adding features, and we are busy innovating and evolving the product even beyond of what it is right now. I see there is, we've got two people from Columbus, Ohio. Good to see you. I'm based in Chicago, so not too far from you. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, the first topic of the day that we're going to dive deeper into are workspaces in API management. We see API management as an ecosystem, as a platform where two types of teams collaborate, the platform team and the API teams. The platform team sets up and manages the infrastructure for API teams, and that may include, for example, shared gateways, that may include CI/CD pipelines, a unified developer portal, etc. They care about compliance of APIs, and they may enforce certain policies for APIs across the board to meet that compliance. And they also have an interest in monitoring the API traffic that flows through the platform. And the platform team occasionally also wants to split the cost of the API management platform within the organization based on the usage of the platform by API teams. On the other hand side, we have API teams that develop, debug, monitor, and manage and publish for consumption APIs and all the related resources, like, for example, products, subscription requests to those APIs, backends, etc. And in some cases, those teams are advanced enough to manage their own infrastructure if they don't want to rely on a shared infrastructure. And in a healthy API ecosystem, those teams should collaborate for the increased productivity and pace of innovation. And there are three ways you can manage APIs in your organization. The two on the left-hand side have been originally supported by API management, and the right, the federated API management model, is what's being enabled right now with Workspaces. In the centralized API model, you have a single API management service that's shared by API teams in your organization without any isolation of control plane or data plane. So what happens is that issues may arise in the control plane. For example, one team takes a dependency on the resource of another team, and that other team unintentionally, changes that resource, unintentionally breaking an API from the other team, and that may cause problems. And there is also, some security concerns, etc. On the data plane, what may happen is that if you onboard all of your teams without any isolation to a single gateway, just one API from one team can cause resource starvation of all the resources in the gateway, for example, CPU or memory or networking resources, and that will bring down the whole API gateway, so all of the APIs in your organization, causing an organization-wide outage. So that centralized model, where the platform team aims to resolve these conflicts in the control plane and in the data plane, is very inefficient, and due to the conflicts and due to the tool structure. And the gateway is a single point of failure. The siloed API management model is sort of the opposite of that, where a single team gets their own API management service in the organization, so they have full isolation of control plane, and they have full isolation of data plane. So that works around those limitations, those conflicts that may arise in the centralized model. However, as a result, you have a proliferation of API management services in your organization, and those services are costly. They're also costly to manage, the number of these services. And there is not an easy way to enforce API governance or compliance across so many different services, or create a unified API discovery experience of a developer portal that spans across these services. So those are the downsides of the siloed API management model. And the federated API management model is an evolution of these two that combines the benefits of these two previous models without their downsides. So how the federated API management model works is that you have a single API management service that you onboard API teams into, but each team gets their own size of that API management service with the isolation of the control plane and potentially with the isolation of the data plane. And because the single API management service, it still allows for easy governance and unified API discovery. So you sort of like work around the limitations of the siloed API management model, but you provide teams with enough isolation and with enough autonomy to manage their own APIs. So how workspaces work from the technical standpoint in Azure API management? And workspaces are that mechanism that enables the federated API management model. So API management service contains workspaces, and each workspace can contain APIs, products, subscriptions, named values, policies, etc. And all of these resources are managed by the respective team that this workspace belongs to. Workspaces today can be associated with a workspace gateway. So at the moment, each workspace has to have a dedicated gateway. More on that in a second. And that dedicated gateway provides each team with full isolation of runtime. And it also has its own configuration, for example, scale, private networking, or TLS configuration. It's all now per gateway resource. However, there are certain things on the service level above workspaces that span workspaces, and these are the controls for the API platform team. For example, the developer portal spans all the workspaces, so it can surface the APIs from within workspaces to consumers. API platform engineers can also apply all APIs policy to enforce API behavior across workspaces, and they can also access centralized logging to see all the logs for the API platform they manage. Workspaces are generally available Workspaces are generally available. They became available at the start of August, and the goal of Workspaces at GA, at the general availability, is to allow organizations to federate management of APIs with runtime isolation. So it's more targeted to the customers who would adopt or have previously adopted the siloed API management model with full isolation between teams. Now with Workspaces, you can instead aggregate all these teams within one single API management service for enhanced governance and API discovery. That runtime isolation is implemented with a dedicated gateway to isolate faults between teams. So your API gateway is not a single point of failure. For example, in case of resource starvation or cybersecurity incidents, those incidents are contained to one team in your organization. And at GA, workspaces are available in the premium tier in selected regions. There are, more enhancements and improvements coming soon to workspaces. These are some of the things that we are already working on, and we expect these features to be available within the next few months. First of all, the ability to deploy multiple workspaces to a workspace gateway. That will allow you to take, some aspect of the centralized API management model where you don't have any randomization between teams in order to reduce the cost of deployment of workspaces. So if your organization does not require or cannot justify randomization for each team, you will be able to deploy multiple workspaces on a single gateway to reduce that cost. We're also working on monitoring enhancements, and that includes metrics on the gateway resources to better inform scaling decisions. And that also includes that federated monitoring that I mentioned, that members of the workspace will have access to the logs for APIs in the workspace only, but the platform team will have access to all the logs in the platform. We are also adding managed identity within workspaces to isolate managed identity between teams, and we are working on adding more regions where workspaces are supported. And I'll show a quick 2 to 3 minute video where we demonstrate how workspaces work in API management. Here is my API management service with already one workspace defined for all the teams that are responsible for order fulfillment APIs. As a platform owner, I'll create another workspace for all the teams responsible for the retail catalog APIs. Alongside with that workspace, I'll create a gateway that will host all the APIs that are managed in that workspace. The gateway will be created in the same resource group and subscription and region as my API management service, and will have the scale of just one scale unit. I can also select the network configuration for that gateway. It can be all public access, inbound and outbound, public inbound and private outbound, or all private inbound and outbound access. For the purpose of the demo, the gateway will be all publicly accessible from the internet and will reach out to internet backends. Once that workspace is created, I can now see it in my list of workspaces. This workspace is where those retail catalog teams will manage their APIs, products, subscriptions to those products, named values, backends, policy fragments, and more. They can also define logging that is specific to their workspace only, so they can easily troubleshoot issues with the APIs and investigate any problems. I can also see the gateway that was created alongside that workspace. The gateway is a separate Azure resource that has its own scale and network configuration. You can manage those configurations in the Azure portal. Coming back to my workspace, which is the workspace that's deployed to this gateway, I can now import an API into the workspace just to demonstrate how that gateway works. I'll import a sample API that we also link in our tutorials, and that API will be assigned to an open product, so a product that allows any access without the subscription key or without any other credentials. So as an API developer, I could just import very easily an API from OpenAPI specification or through other methods into my workspace, and now I can test that API. And if you notice, the hostname for this API is now the hostname of my gateway resource. It's no longer the hostname of the built-in gateway that's part of the API management service, but is the hostname of that gateway that was created alongside my workspace. I can make a test call to this API, and in fact the test call succeeds and returns 200 OK response. Of course, after the API works, I can start creating more resources and also create policies for this API, just like I can do it today in API management outside workspaces. All right, so that was it, the demonstration of workspaces. And I see there is a comment from Shiva. I think the workspace is still region specific. I have my API instance in West Europe and it says I cannot create workspace. That is correct. So workspace gateways, which is that component provides isolation for teams, they are still available in certain regions only. We are working on adding more support for more regions. West Europe is one of them. And if you're interested in enabling workspace in a specific region, please fill out the form that is the second link on the site, aka.ms/apim/workspaces/request regions. That will help us prioritize the regional build out for workspaces and the regions that we support workspaces in. The first link is the link to the GA announcement. It contains a lot of details around those models of managing APIs that I discussed a minute ago, as well as some other details like migration from preview workspaces, our high-level roadmap, and links to documentation pages. There is another comment. I didn't see a custom domain. Is that possible? No, today Workspaces don't support custom domains yet. That's something on the roadmap, but it's not supported as of today. One workaround very often used by customers is to use an Azure Application Gateway or Azure Front Door in front of Workspaces or Workspace gateways to provide that custom hostname. And there is a question also from Derek. Is there a roadmap of when Workspace will be available in particular regions? We don't have timelines publicly available. We are prioritizing those regions as we see, requests flowing to the form that's linked in the second bullet point. So we don't have a timeline publicly available with fixed dates for original support. Can multiple workspaces with the same gateway? Not at the moment. This is something that I mentioned. It's what we are working on right now. Is the first bullet point on the right-hand side. It should be available soon in the next few months. And the last question before we go to the next section is, I didn't find Terraform Azure RM resource for Workspace. When can we expect Terraform support? That's also work in progress. I think it should be available in the next few months. We just released a GA management API version that supports Workspaces, and Terraform, Azure CLI, PowerShell, and all other SDKs will be coming right after that. So the GA management API version was a prerequisite for that support. And if you have any more questions, feel free to post them in the chat. We can take them at the end of the call, but now in the interest of time, we have to move on to the next section, which is API Center with Julia Kasper. Julia, I'm adding you to the stage.
Sounds good. Hi, Mike. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Lovely to meet everyone. My name is Julia. Let's go back to the slides, Mike. Before I'm going to show some demos, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So we have a bunch of demos. I also have a guest presenter, Abbas, with me today. So we want to make sure we are covering, first of all of the new things that we recently added to the product itself. Also, I want to talk a little bit about something that is currently in the cooking, in particular between API management and API Center. So for this, I also have another demo. And then last but not least, we have a guest speaker with us today who's going to talk about a hands-on use case, something we are seeing out there that really helps our customers adopting API Center or some of the very interesting use cases. All right. So for the next slide, I'm going to talk about API analysis, managed linting. So currently we are in public preview with that. Let me give you a little bit of background why we added this new functionality. So API analysis has been part of API Center from the very first beginning. Previously, a lot of customers, for enabling this, you had to enable a custom function, you had to configure events in API Center, which really was troublesome to a lot of customers out there. So based on your guys' feedback, we iterate on the feature. And now with the new functionality, we are very excited to share that API analysis is now, it comes with API Center. So you don't have to configure anything beforehand. It will just work as soon as you enable this functionality itself. So I am a big fan of demos. So for this, I just want to show you what this new functionality looks like and what the functionality actually is. So for this, we can share my demo screen. Perfect. So I'm currently in an API Center that I have up and running. So where can you find the new functionality? In our API Analysis tab. So as you see, first of all, the view of this page already looks very different. And we have some amazing metrics. And you can also now find the tabs up here, which indicates already, hey, this is something new that we are supporting. As I mentioned, as of right now, API Center by default comes with API Analysis. So this means you can view whatever rule set you have enabled within your API Center. So if I check in here, I can see I already went ahead and updated my rule set here from the very first beginning. every API center will come with a default rule set. So we will enable this for you. You can quickly see how your APIs are doing based on the API analysis and rule sets that we've applied. But very important, because we do know that every organization usually has their own rules, has their own guidance. So we wanted to make sure we are also supporting an editing experience. So this is where you would use our VS Code extension. And how this works right now is via the rules folder, you're now able to see two new things. One is the rule set YAML file, which you can see on the right here, but then also a function folder. API analysis is using Spectral under the hood as our linting engine. So we wanted to make sure whatever rule sets organizations already have out there that they want to support in the future, whatever Spectral comes with is also supported. So Spectral typically comes with a rule set YAML file where you can define some very basic rules. If it becomes very complex, if you really need support for more custom functions, this is also where the custom function folder comes in. So you can define really based on your need how customized you need these functions to be. So let's imagine I want to update my rules, right? As you can see, currently I have two rules in my API center. So for this, I ask GitHub Copilot. I wanted to provide a new rule. I wanted to add a new rule. And this new rule should be that every time my Open API specification has a contact field, it should also have an email field here. So let me copy this one out here and let me add it to my rule set YAML file. Let me save it. And what you're going to see is, because my active style guide within VS Code has already been set to look at my rules, you will see that whatever Open API specification I have open, it will change in real time. And it gives me a way to test these rule sets, the ones that I added locally. So as soon as I'm going to save, you can see it changed to 3 here. So I can make sure whatever rules I'm adding here is something that is supported, is something that works. So now what I'm going to do is I want to redeploy these new rules to API Center. So for this, I can also use our VS Code extension, and I can hit the Deploy Rules to API Center tab, which will then take my rules that I currently have locally, and it will bring it back and redeploy it to my API Center in Azure. This typically takes a little bit of time, because what we do is we will not just update the rules, we will also relint whatever APIs you already have in there. So whenever I hit the refresh button and whenever I open it, let me check if the new rules have been applied yet. Perfect. So I can see now that my new rules have been applied. So now, for example, if I want to add another API to my API Center, the new rules will be applied, and it will show me in time what is happening with my Open API or my API here in particular. So let's see if my API has been added. Perfect. So I can already see the new API that I just added has been registered in API Center. The same also goes for my VS Code extension. I can now also find the new API here. So now let's check what happened on my API analysis tab. If I refresh, perfect, I can now see 3 APIs that I have in API Center also got analyzed. And this one actually shows 3 error and warning messages. So whenever I want to see more in detail what is happening here, I can use the Azure portal, and it will tell me what is going on and what I do have to change. The very nice thing about this is, as a developer, I can also use, with our VS Code extension, the same functionality in VS Code. So ideally, we want to include the developer as early on as possible while building out the Open API specs. So before I'm even registering my API, it gives me a chance to check on my Open API specs. So if I would change this, as you can tell, it will immediately change and update and it will show me that now further on, I won't have any error warning messages. Let me also add an email here. Perfect. So now if I would re-register my API spec, it will this time, it will re-upload a new API version. It will detect a new version. It will detect and recreate a new API and also API specification. But this time, because I already checked on my API guidelines, this time around, it won't show any error messages anymore. So let's see if my API version has been added. So in my versions tab, I'm now able to see the new version that was added to my API itself. And in my API governance tab, I can now see the number of APIs didn't change. It's still 3 APIs that got analyzed, but actually 4 API definitions got analyzed this time around. And perfect, now we can see the new version, and I can see that this time around, I don't have any error and warning messages. Something very interesting to also note is our execution history. So every time you're running or every time linting is being executed, it will tell you in the execution history what has happened. So as you can tell today, what we did earlier today is we re-uploaded the rules. So this time my 2 APIs got relinted. Then I added a new API, and then I added a new version. So every time you're running, you're changing something in your API analysis tab, you're being notified that things are going on. And in case something happens, you need more details, you can always find out more about these executions in the execution history here. As I mentioned, we are currently in public preview. Feel free to go ahead and test this new functionality. We are always happy to hear and learn from you. What are some of the functionalities that you would like to see regarded or related to API analysis? And of course, always feel free to reach out about this functionality to me or to contact us to let us know what your thoughts are. And with this, let me switch back to our slides before we're going to jump into the new demo section here. And the next demo is, if we go to the next slide, Mike, here, we will now talk about Azure API Center and in particular API management. As a reminder, API Center is your centralized inventory solution that wherever your APIs are being deployed to, API Center is your one centralized inventory. So let's imagine we are within the Azure space. We have multiple different APIM gateways up and running, or maybe even cross-cloud, and you really have a need of having this one single place where you would like to track and where you would like to see all of these different APIs. So what have we recently done? On the next slide, you can see one of the new functionality or something that we now added is currently related to the Azure space is a lot of our customers have used the importing functionality from an API management instance to an Azure API Center. One of the feedback has been around import is great. It gives us a good way to handle and see what is going on in some of our different APIM instances. But the reality is API management instances keep changing, right? APIs are being added, new versions are being added. So rather than us to support an import-only functionality, something the team has been working on is a synchronization mechanism. You can kind of see it as a subscription model. So within API Center, you want to subscribe to an API management instance. And with the new functionality, with the new feature, we are now allowing and we are now offering these new capabilities. Let me also quickly show you in the demo what this will look like. So in my demo, if we can switch to my screen, perfect. You can see I currently have an API management service instance up and running with also a bunch of different APIs. So what does the new feature look like on API Center side? Via the Environments tab, you can now find we are currently rolling this new functionality out, something called links. Links essentially is the subscription model. It makes you link your API Center instance or your API management instance towards each other. So if I click in here, there is a button that says create a new link. So what you can do is you can filter and find the right resource group that you need for this. Let me quickly check on the resource group here. Perfect. Then you can select whatever API management instance you want to select here. As a next step, you have to define what environment details you want to provide. Links and environments is something different. Links is a mechanism for you to create the link to your API management instance. We also have the concept of environments here. So in this field, in this section of it, you can define what the environment title should be and provide a little bit of more functionality here too. Test APIM. I also now have a way to select the environment type because I'm currently testing this. Let me put in the testing phase. So this is how my environment will be configured within API Center. Next, I have a little bit of information I can provide for the APIs that will be imported or that will be synced. In this case, I also want to set the API lifecycle stage to testing. Important note, this can be changed afterwards, but for you to easily get started, let's define this for all of these APIs. Of course, after some time, this can also be changed as well. So as soon as I hit the create button, you will see the notification that the request is processed. So in this moment, we are creating a link to your API management instance. So this way, we will know all of the APIs that are on API management side, and we will automatically register them in API Center. So what happened here? We auto-created the environment that we've previously specified. And now whenever I switch to my APIs tab, you can now see that all of the linked APIs are now here in API Center. Very important note, API management stays the single source of truth. So whatever changes you make on API management side, these will be reflected on the API Center side. And what this means is, just to show you a quick demo, is let's imagine I have some updates on API management side. This API is being deleted. So let me hit the delete button here. So now I only have 6 APIs in API management, and I want to see if this has been reflected and the test demo API has really been deleted. So whenever I hit the refresh button, this may take a little bit, this should be updated. Let me show you another functionality is we do understand that APIs can have different versions, can have different assets coming with it as well. Another example I want to show is my customer order API here has 2 different versions. So these are also assets that will be reflected in API Center here as well. So whenever I go in here and I want to see what are the different versions that have been registered, you will now see the 2 different versions in API Center as well. If we can go back to the slides. So this is currently being rolled out. If you are interested in testing this functionality, as you saw in my demo, we are still tweaking it a little bit. So this isn't available for every customer out there. We are rolling this out in batches. But if this is something you're very interested in, and if you want to get a pre-hand on this, please scan the QR code. Please reach out to me. We are more than happy to add you to our gated preview. So this is something that you want to add, that you want to provide us feedback on. We are always eager to learn from what are some of the functionalities that you would like to see and that works for you, that doesn't work for you. So please scan this, please fill it out, or also reach out to myself. With this being said, let's go to our last section of today, where I have a guest speaker with me, Abbas. Abbas is an app innovation specialist working here for Microsoft. Hi, Abbas. Very nice to meet you. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, hi Julia. Thank you. So my name is Abbas. I'm a senior cloud solution architect here at Microsoft. I'm in app innovation space, helping customers modernize and innovate their enterprise applications using AI and cloud native technologies. So thank you, Julia, for inviting me over here. So today I'm
Awesome,
going to.
Yeah. You brought a very interesting use case with us, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe on the next slide, before we're jumping into your demo, you can tell us a little bit more about what are some of the things that you're seeing out there, how app innovation specialists, what some innovative ideas you had looking at API Center and some of the newest technology.
So API Center is a really important compliance and governance part of any ecosystem. So like the best part about API Center is like the art of its integration, and plus like how you can automate your existing process, and plus add Gen AI to the picture and make it more developer friendly. Using this approach, like the architecture in front of you right now. Julia already demoed to you about how to register API definitions and everything. Once the API definitions are registered, API Center emits events over here. So like once the analysis reports are generated, an event is generated, and we can capture those and use logic apps and Azure OpenAI to integrate with our existing ecosystem, and then generate really nice, beautiful reports, which can be used to comply with the governance, and also help developers to automate and correct their issues quickly. And also the art over here is the new Azure OpenAI connector as well, which is in Logic App Standard, which makes it more easier to integrate with low code, no code scenario over here.
I think we're having some network issues on Abbas' side. Can you hear us again, Abbas?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, it's better.
Good. Good. So like, so we can jump on demo now. Let me present my screen. Cool. So over here, I'm going to present you the architecture, which was here before on the screen, that how this will work in reality. So just to give a like high level workflow. So this is the workflow which we have in Logic Apps. So when the API Center emits the events, it's captured in the event, and the Logic App gets triggered. And then over here, what we do, we fetch the analysis report, which is generated by managed linting, which is in public preview right now, and use that that analysis report and pass it to Azure OpenAI. The art over here is that is the prompt engineering over here. We instruct the OpenAI what we want out from the analysis report over here. Once we get that information back, and then we raise an issue in our GitHub repository over here, basically. So let me quickly show you how this will work in reality. So if I do this just from the UI, and let me add a definition. Yep. So once it's generated, this will trigger over here. And just give it a couple of minutes. It should trigger. Yeah, it's triggered over here. Nice. Yep, successfully done. Now, what has happened over here? It has created an issue. So I've created an issue with using the API analysis report over here. So how this is has summarized my all findings from API Center's analysis report. Like it has categorized all of them, how many total count of errors are there. This is my favorite error, kebab case. It has an error over here. And then it is also providing me, I asked Azure OpenAI to provide me a high level remediation guidance on how to resolve them over here, basically. So the art over here is that it's automatically integrated in your existing ecosystem, and without any further like manual processes or like this, you can combine Logic Apps integration and Azure OpenAI to make it all automated and developer friendly and more helpful for product owners as well to quickly go apply compliance and governance stuff to your APIs over here.
Awesome, thank you, Abbas. I think if this is a use case that you're interested in, first of all, I think it shows very nicely that you can start shifting left with API governance and API Center. So you want to involve your developers, you want to let them know about how they did in terms of API analysis, if there are any error warning messages. Abbas has created an amazing blog post where in very detail, he tells a little bit more about the solution, some steps, and how you can set it up. And now back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Julia. We'll take 2 questions for API Center, and thank you, Abbas, as well. A couple of questions before we jump to the Defender for API section. So the question number 1 is, does API Center come at an additional cost?
Great question. So Azure API Center, it's its own standalone Azure service. We do work very closely with API management together. And as you see today in the demos, we are introducing more and more features to make these 2 products work very well together. Currently, we have 2 different tiers. One is a standard one and one is a free one. The free one is for you to check it out, to test it and evaluate the solution. And then we have a standard one, which comes with additional costs. And on the pricing page, you can find, depending on the region, how much it costs.
Thank you, Julia. And the second question is a can of worms here, but this is quite a common question. So can you explain the difference between API Center and Developer Portal?
So Azure API Center, we are an inventory solution versus API management is targeted towards the gateway. It's targeted towards runtime governance, and API Center, as we've seen, is design time governance. I know the question is towards the developer portal. So API Center currently focuses on internal use cases. API Center is a tool for platform organizations, for internal developers, for internal teams who you would like to have better transparency into the API ecosystem. That's why we highly invested in the VS Code extension to have both of these different personas, the platform engineers, but also the API developers, move closely together. API Center comes with a developer portal or an API Center portal as well, which again is mainly focused on internal use cases and is currently self-hosted, versus API management also targets the external users with subscription keys and all of these really nice things integrated in API management as well.
Perfect, thank you. And I believe we have a blog post as well that talks about these differences or like complementary capabilities between API management and API Center. So we can link that in a chat just in a minute. And with that, thank you very much again, Julia and Abbas, for presenting API Center, and we'll talk about Defender, and then we'll wrap it up for today. So let me reshuffle here the speakers. Thank you. And we've got Pritam from Defender for APIs team. Hi, Pritam.
Hello, Mike. Good morning, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody.
Yeah, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mike. As Mike was mentioning, Defender for APIs is one of the products which is part of the Microsoft suite that looks at all of the API security capabilities. But first of all, we can take a quick look. What is the problem that organizations are facing with API risks today? As we can see, APIs are everywhere. Almost 70-80% of the web traffic is now API traffic based on several reports that we've been seeing online. So the first problem we see is the lack of visibility. You cannot secure what you cannot see or what you don't know. Similar to how Julia and how Mike was presenting earlier, there is really a rapid growth of API first approach, and the proliferation of these APIs across multi-cloud infrastructure has really created this sprawl of APIs that has become very difficult for security teams to manage and also govern all of their APIs in one place. And also, when we think about vulnerabilities or issues that we face with APIs, it's really APIs are a dimension of code, and they're really a code level vulnerabilities. So one needs to have a behavioral understanding or a deep business logic understanding of how do APIs stay secure, and how do we even start secure with APIs. Examples like broken object level authorizations or others that are mentioned by OWASP API top 10 community clearly indicate that the risks with APIs are growing. Now, also, there is traditional measures will need another supercharger. We've been using WAFs, API gateways, we've been using CDNs and other form of perimeter protection platforms for a long time. They're very good in enabling API use cases that are specifically focused on access management, authorizations, and base level controls. However, API security goes one level up and provides you a real-time visibility, posture, hygiene, and the runtime threat protection capabilities by understanding what are the real logic that is being exploited or exposed using APIs. And APIs-based exploits can be programmed as well, and threat actors also can use this to exploit your APIs or even broader applications. So for that, we have Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which is a multi-cloud CNAPP platform. It's a cloud-native application protection platform that looks at your infrastructure resources across your hybrid cloud, your developer suite that includes your GitHub, GitLab, and more, and also all of your applications like the APIs. The goal of Defender for Cloud is you enable a secure development, you start secure with DevOps security, assess your risk using security posture management, and stay secure by remediating threats faster with the real-time security threat protection. In the next slide, we see how Defender for APIs come as part of it. So Microsoft Defender for APIs provides full lifecycle security coverage, both for your APIs, including your classifying your API posture, security insights that can tell you when your APIs are being assessed for inactivity or dormant APIs that are left behind in production. Second is APIs that could be that have been pushed to production, which were not enforced with proper authentication measures, or APIs that exchange sensitive data. And APIs typically do exchange sensitive data, and this could become a real issue for security leaders when protecting data or trying to understand what type of sensitivity APIs are providing. The other thing API provides is a contextualization where you need to understand when APIs have these inherent vulnerabilities or misconfiguration, what is the impact to the broader application context? And with this, Defender for APIs provides attack path analysis and Security Explorer as part of the Defender's ESPM plan. And finally, Defender for APIs continuously monitors for your APIs and provides you the security coverage against the OWASP top 10 using both rule-based detection and ML-based behavioral detection. Finally, through the extensive work with our partners, we enable APIs to be tested statically and dynamically in your pre-production environments like GitHub, GitLab, CI/CD environments to test for API vulnerabilities and fix them even before they are they're pushed to production. So next slide, since the time is pretty short, you can start protecting your APIs today. Just go to Microsoft Defender for Cloud within the Azure portal. select your subscription, and onboard your APIs. And this is fully available for Azure API management APIs. You need once you enable or onboard your APIs, you can use workload protections to see all your APIs listed alongside of the API security insights that are presented. And this shows when your APIs were last called, what kind of authentication mechanisms were enforced, if the APIs did not have any authentication, and what type of sensitive data that was exposed in APIs. And that's not all. Even when to meet developers where they are, we also have a deep integration within the API management portal. And here you can ensure that at the time of creating your API management service, you can simply with a one click enable Defender for APIs, even while creating your API management service. So this gives you a real day zero experience by ensuring how your APIs that you create post within the service can be protected from day one. So with that, yeah, the last slide here also talks about the contextualization. So if customers have Defender CSPM plan enabled, you can analyze a full API-led attack path analysis. So this is where you ensure your APIs are designed with security in mind and understand what are the entry point of risks into our infrastructure that's starting with API. And then you can see visually how the endpoints are being exposed with security vulnerabilities and security recommendations that we publish within Defender for Cloud. Take actions against them and remediate these risks faster. Further, you can use the graph-based Security Explorer experience to look for all your APIs and contextualize different security insights that can give you a side-by-side view about your attack path analysis, explore risks, prioritize them, and fix them sooner to keep your APIs secured, all with the native integration capabilities with Azure API management. So with that, I'll bring Mike on.
Perfect. Thank you, Pritam. We did not get any questions about Defender yet, but maybe we can stay on the call for a few minutes until we have our Q&A section. Sorry, please give me a second. Apologies. Some technical difficulties. Just 1 second. We are going to wrap up the stream in just a second. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. We'll be taking those. We'll take a few of them live, and then if we run out of time, we can always reply on YouTube to follow up with an answer. And give me a second to reshare my deck. Okay. Apologies for the technical glitch. We have one more live stream coming up by the end of the year. You can monitor the announcement about that live stream as well as all the other product announcements and feature announcements at this link, which points to our blog, aka.ms/apim/blogs. This is where we post about live streams. This is where we post about new features coming up, etc. So make sure you monitor that. It automatically filters the blog to API Management and API Center updates only. And as you post your questions in the chat, I see there's a couple that we have not answered yet. Please also scan this QR code on the right-hand side or go to the link above it and provide us with feedback. We would love to hear from you if this is something that you're interested in joining again. What do you think we can improve on in terms of this live stream? What other content would you like to see, etc.? So any comments are welcome. And this is, we want this to make this basically time for you to interact with the product group and make sure that you spend this time in a valuable way. There is a question from Shiva. Is there a roadmap to show the OData APIs created in API Management Developer Portal? We don't have a timeline to share yet, so unfortunately, I cannot give you a specific date, but we'll take that into consideration. Thank you for your feedback. Is this, I assume, Defender for APIs considered a cybersecurity tool? Pritham, would you like to take that question?
Yes, Mike. Yes, it is. So Defender for APIs is one of the products within the cybersecurity platform, and that's called Microsoft Defender for Cloud, that focuses on your cloud infrastructure, which are spread across different hybrid cloud environments, and also your applications and APIs that are published in APIM, API management.
Perfect. Thank you, Pritham.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Last minute, last opportunity. Is there a Teams channel for Azure API management, be it for partners, customers, to keep the community posted? We don't really have external-facing Teams channels specifically. We are all over the internet. So if you really would like to stay up to date on API management updates, like I said, there is a link to the blog, which gives you all the new information about recent updates, recent features, as well as sometimes we share a little bit of a roadmap there as well. We also have a GitHub repository with the release notes to closely monitor what's shipping in new releases. So those are our main channels for communicating the product updates. And with that, we are already past the hour, so we'll be wrapping this up. Thank you very much for joining today. Again, please provide us with feedback. That helps us improve the live stream going forward. And we are glad we had you here today. Thank you very much.